years ago, I went on a journey, a sort of modern-day quest for immortality. We called it Chasing Life. In the book and the special that followed, one fact became clear. In the multi-billion-dollar-a-year anti-aging industry, there isn't much clarity at all. Hundreds of products, even more pieces of advice. Yet there still isn't a single pill, a single formula to living a longer, healthier life. At least not yet.
It's no longer a question of if, it's a question of when.
2 years later, the field of aging research is exploding, and scientists are now closer than ever to answering the fundamental questions of aging. Hello and welcome to Vital Signs, a global look at health that knows no boundaries. I'm Dr. Sanjay Gupta, CNN's chief medical correspondent and a practicing neurosurgeon. Nearly 500 years ago, the Spanish explorer Ponce de Leon set out in search of the so-called fountain of youth. He never found it. And ever since, while Ponce de Leon's fountain remains fiction, his search for longevity continues. In Andorra, people don't live forever, but they do live a very long time, with an average life expectancy of around 82 years of age. Andorra is tied for second on the World Health Organization's longevity list. Our Jim Bitterman traveled to this tiny European principality and shows us why Andorrans' way of life may just be worth replicating.
3-day-old Lucia Sanchez doesn't know it yet, but statistically, she has a good chance of living longer than most everyone else on the planet. Lucia's parents know why. She was born, and her family is fortunate to live in the tiny Principality of Andorra, a country which, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, has the longest life expectancy of any country in the world. On average, those born here today will live to be 83 and a half years old.
I hope she will be very happy in her life and very healthy.
In fact, Lucia has every chance of being both. Her new homeland, while not exactly Shangri-La, is, like that fictional land, lost high in the mountains, the Pyrenees in this case, straddling the border between France and Spain. A sunny, prosperous, isolated, and stress-free place. All contributing factors, according to the country's only full-time gerontologist, in helping Andorrans live longer.
Andorra has always had the reputation of being a kind of a happy little place. I mean,
yes,
is it true? I mean,
yes, I think it's completely true. Specifically for one thing, we don't have any violence. I think it's one of the most safe countries in the world.
That sense of security is one thing, but the surroundings are another. Dr. Font is convinced that living in the mountains is, in general, healthier both for mind and body.
The psychology of old persons is more than important. The big enemy of old persons is not the doctor, but the medicine, the drug.
Mm-hmm.
Everything which avoids you to take drugs is your friend.
Mm-hmm.
The mountains, the birds, the flowers. The doctors sometimes.
It's not only the environment that makes Andorra special. With only 80,000 citizens to look after in a country just over half the geographic size of New York City, Andorra's free public health care system can devote plenty of resources to taking good care of all ages. Since prenatal checkups are mandatory, the health of every Andorran is tracked from even before they're born until their deathbed. And unlike some public systems, Andorrans can choose their doctors and specialists. So, caregivers often know the personal and medical histories of their patients as well as their own. Gastrointestinal surgeon Pere Jordo Calais is a perfect example.
Olá, Sr. Manel. Como aneu?
The doctor was just 5 years old when he first met his patient, neighbor Domingo Villaroya. A few days ago, he operated on his old friend's biliary tract. At 81, Villaroya also suffers from cardiac disease, pulmonary disease, and kidney problems. But the doctor says there's never an age question when it comes to operating.
What is most important is the general state of the patient, more than the age of the patient.
Economics comes second, too, when it comes to getting the right medical care.
We are very lucky in Andorra. Everyone can come to the hospital.
Not only does Andorra itself have a high-quality public health care system, but because of exchange agreements with its two much larger neighbors, France and Spain, patients who need specialized treatment can find it free outside the country.
The public health system here includes a well-developed network of facilities for senior citizens. At one of the neighborhood geriatric centers scattered around the country, 80 and 90-year-olds are encouraged to get out and walk up and down the hills for an hour each sunny morning. And then it's back to the exercise room or swimming pool for another hour of group training before lunch. The elderly can choose to live in the center or just visit for the daily exercise and socializing. I met Andorra's oldest citizen here, 102-year-old Rita Ruffo Carbonell, still perfectly fluent in Spanish, French, and Catalan, and as feisty as when she was a young seamstress making uniforms for the anti-fascist fighters during the Spanish Civil War 70 years ago. But Rita was living in neighboring Spain during the fighting, not neutral Andorra. In fact, through all the European wars of the 20th century, Andorra was never once involved in a conflict. Another explanation, gerontologists say, for the Principality's life expectancy statistics. And then there's the question of diet. Andorrans generally take the time and effort to eat well.
Being this close to the Mediterranean, maintaining the celebrated Mediterranean diet is not all that difficult. Plenty of fresh fruits and vegetables, substituting olive oil for saturated fats like butter, maybe the odd glass of red wine or two. It's just the way people live here, and a visit to a market like this one is part of the daily routine.
But things are changing in Andorra. 76-year-old farmer Pierre Fontvergas remembers the days when just taking his herd of cattle to pastures and back home again would easily mean hiking 30 kilometers, that's 18 miles, up and down the mountain trails each day. Today, he points out, there are tractors and cars, machines instead of hand tools to cut the hay for the cattle. What's more, he insists the water is not as pure as it used to be, even though it still trickles down from the snow-capped mountains as it always has. A new lifestyle has come to the Principality, the old farmer says. Skiing and tourism are the country's new profit centers. Life is getting increasingly stressful. More people are eating fast food instead of the traditional diet and not getting enough exercise. Andorra, he believes, is no longer like it was when he and his 98-year-old mother grew up. She still walks 1.5 miles a day, he says proudly. Gerontologist Dr. Font agrees with the Andorra farmer that changing lifestyles may have a negative impact on the country's life expectancy statistics, which he thinks could be skewed by a generation that grew up under just the right circumstances. In Andorra, he says, the secrets to long life are not really secrets at all. You've heard them all before. Good health care, clean water, proper diet, plenty of exercise, and a low-stress, positive life. Andorrans say modestly that their country excels at none of those in particular, but has a fair share of all of them. It's a matter of equilibrium, said one senior care worker, leading a life that is well-balanced. But even here in remote Andorra, there's no assurance that life will go on forever. For Vital Signs, this is Jim Bitterman in Andorra.
There's no doubt environment plays a role in the health and vitality of Andorrans. But there's much more behind the science of longevity. We head inside the labs of researchers who are exploring genetic pathways in hopes of unlocking the secrets to aging. But throughout the show, we're also going to hear from people who already have genetics on their side.
Good genes. My father was lived to be almost, in a few weeks of 92.
I go to bed at 7 and wake up at 2. My well-being is more important than money.